This is David with The Verge, and this is the Sony Tablet P. It's available from AT&T for $399 with a 2-year contract or $549 without one. When it's closed, it kind of looks like a glasses case. It's nice looking, it's a little creaky. The plastic on the front will give a little if you press it, but for the most part, it's well built. It'll slide into a jacket pocket or even jeans if you wear baggy jeans. And when you open it up, there's two 5.5-inch displays inside. Each one is 1024 by 480, which is kind of an odd resolution and leads to some issues with software and apps. They'll run with bezels on each side, so you don't actually fill the screen even with videos, which is a little odd. The screens are good, otherwise the blacks are super dark. Sony uses true black technology, which works pretty well here and makes the screens look good. The viewing angles are really bad though. Whites start to get really yellow as soon as you get off axis, and colors just don't look good. It's got a really sturdy hinge, which is nice, and you can actually prop it up at almost any angle, but it's got these enormous bezels on both sides. It's actually over an inch on each side, and it makes the device really hard to hold, especially if you're trying to get at the top screen. It's just kind of awkward to reach around all the time. There's also a big bezel between the two screens, so any app that you use that will go from one to the other gets really broken up as you move between the two. The bottoms of the device are also really sharp, which means as you hold the device, it actually digs into your palms to the point where if you use it for more than a few minutes as you're reaching around, it actually starts to hurt your hand. There are ports on the right side. There's a power button, an AC adapter. It actually won't charge via the USB port, which is a shame. So it has its own pretty big power adapter. So there are two cameras on the Tablet P, 5-megapixel shooter on the back, which takes functional pictures in a pinch, but it's not something you're going to really want to use. It also shoots 720p video, and it's pretty much the same story. It's decent if you really need to use it, and it's all you have with you, but this certainly isn't going to replace your digital camera. The front-facing camera, on the other hand, is really bad, even by our low front-facing camera standards. The Tablet P is running Android 3.2.1, and it has a lot of the same problems that every other Honeycomb tablet does. It's sluggish at points, and there are some definite bugs. Sony also customized basically everything about the operating system, largely because they had to get it to work on the two screens. Some of the apps that they redesigned, though, actually work really well. So since there's the two screens, what Sony did a lot was put the app on the top screen and the keyboard on the bottom, which is nice because it gives you a full screen for the keyboard without taking up a lot of what you'd want to see from the app. They also designed it to fit with the screen resolution, so you do get more of a full screen look from it. So for some things where Sony managed to actually do some work in changing the apps, it works really well on the two screens. But with a lot of other things, like Angry Birds, where Sony doesn't really have any effect, it just defaults it to the top screen, and the bottom screen becomes basically useless. For some apps, you can expand them to show on both screens, but that's both, as you can see, really buggy and just looks pretty bad. You'll get the catapult for Angry Birds like right here in the middle, where it just becomes impossible to use. For a couple of the games that they've been able to change, like Crash Bandicoot, which is part of Sony's PlayStation Store. This is a PlayStation certified device. You actually get the controls down on the bottom screen and the game up here. Again, it's a weird resolution for the game, so you get a lot of blank space, but it's cool to be able to use these controls to run around here. In general, the performance on the tablet is pretty solid. It has a Tegra 2 processor, which is a little outdated now, but still works pretty well, and for the most part, it moves around quickly, apps launch fast, and there wasn't much delay other than the stuff we're used to from normal Honeycomb devices. The browser in particular is pretty solid. The Android browser typically has trouble with full sites like ours that are really image heavy, but in this case it works relatively well. Pinching and zooming is a little buggy, but smoother here than on most devices we've seen. And the browser performance is definitely a strength, despite the fact that it's really hard to see what's actually happening on a web page. It connects to AT&T's HSPA Plus network, unfortunately not LTE, but reception was pretty good. The lack of LTE, much like the Tegra 2 processor, makes the Tablet P feel like a device that was designed a year ago and then really hasn't been changed between then and now when it's finally being released. The Tablet P also has other problems. There's a huge issue with the two displays. Sony did as much as it could to optimize Android for two displays, but a lot of things it just can't touch and a lot of apps just don't work well. If you really want a portable gaming console, you can get the Xperia Play or the PlayStation Vita, both also on AT&T, for cheaper than the Tablet P. And if you really just want a tablet that does games well, you can get the iPad too.